All right, Peter and Jay, ready to roll?
What's this?
All right, we got a lot in front of us. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:02. Do we have postings, Kat?
Yes.
Thank you so much. If everybody please rise for the salute of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could remain standing, everybody, it is my pleasure and joy to introduce Zoe Nagel, who's going to sing the national anthem for us tonight. Thank you so much, Zoe, for being here, and Mom and Dad as well.
I will go right here.
That's perfect.
I don't know where else to go.
Face the camera, though. You're great.
Hello.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for the reconstitution of the board.
I nominate Tim Dow for chairperson.
Oh, second?
Discussion? Any further nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, you may take over. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, board members. I'll take nomination for vice chair.
I nominate Jeff Savory for vice chair.
Will there be further nominations for vice chair?
I'll second the motion.
Seeing no other nominations, all in favor for Jeff, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jeff will continue being the vice chair. I need now take nominations for treasurer.
Nominate Deb Brown, treasurer.
Nominate Deb for treasurer. Do I have any further nominations? Seeing no further nominations, all in favor of Deb being treasurer, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Deb will continue being treasurer. So the board makeup will stay the same as previous. Okay, one of the things is the assignment of Franklin School Board committees. I will get those out to you as soon as possible, probably within the next week. I just need to add on Paul and Cecile onto different committees. But those members that are still currently with us, that are chairs of boards, you will continue being chairs of boards. That will not be changing. I will just be taking Anya and off and adding people onto it. But members that are currently on a chair, you will continue chairing your respected boards. So new board assignments will come out within the next week. The superintendent will email them out to you once I get them completed.
Chairperson?
Yes, sir.
I cannot be on strategic planning. Huge conflict of interest.
Yes, you've made that, so I'll make sure
Thank
you're
you.
not there. Thank you, Paul. Okay, the next thing we need to do is I need to forward out school board ethics, members' ethics that need to be signed off on. I'll take this one and pass this one together.
Number 10 is still unconstitutional from 3 years ago. I'll be not signing the school board membership agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Doucette, that is noted.
Is it the whole thing, Paul, or is it just the first section?
There's no severability, so it's the entire document.
No. Why are you objecting to number 10?
Because it's unconstitutional. Takes away a person's right of freedom of speech.
Once you've signed off, or if you elect not to, it is totally your right. Just send it back down so I can sign off on the forms, and the superintendent will place them within the respected school board folder that he has within his office. Yeah, you want to keep the top one so you're aware of your policy. The ethics falls under school board policy BCA, under section B.
Never sign anything is unconstitutional.
I'm gonna just have you bring them, send them down, and then I'll sign them off after, so I don't delay the meeting. The superintendent will hold on to them for me. If you want to keep your copy of the top, you may. And we'll sign all of them off with the superintendent, because his signature needs to be on it too. So I have all the copies?
Nope. I'm still at it.
It's okay, Cecile. Okay, we all set? All right, so that's agenda item number 4. We're gonna go to agenda item number 5, which is our public participation. Okay, this is this portion of the meeting that I give 3 minutes, to anybody who wants to address the board on any issue. Okay, a person has 3 minutes to speak with the board. I give no more than 30 minutes to this portion of our meeting. But I do have a second public participation at the end of our night, so if for some reason we had to run over, or a lot of public participation, we do have another one at the end of the night where we can address further public participation. So at this time, anybody who would like to address the board during this public participation, I just ask you to state your name and what ward you live in. So if anybody would like to.
Joe Brown, Ward 1. Do I need to face the mic? Is that?
No, you don't need to face the mic, we can hear you, but if you stand there, I'll at least get you on camera.
Okay. All right, well, congratulations to all of you for a new school board year. What I want to talk about and share with you are some things that I've talked about in the city council meeting. And I'm not asking for any... Hi, Jay. How are you tonight? Look at that, right on the calendar and everything.
Just a little bit better than you bet.
Okay, perfect. Well, actually, I don't know. It's the things that I've talked about in the city council meetings, And I have written them down. I'm going to give you a copy of all of this, but there's some things that came out of the 21st century, some things that Dan and I have talked about, Jim and I have talked about probably in years past. So let me just go through this so I can keep into my 3 minutes. But as we move into the new year, I want to give you some of the questions addressing some of the concerns that have been brought up, as I mentioned, in prior city council meetings. And I'd asked about where in the strategic plan we could find specific references on plans to address significant student deficiencies, particularly in the math and the sciences. And when I look at the strategic plan, I see goal two, that strives to create an environment where teachers are valued, have access to the tools necessary to create a safe, supportive educational experience. So my question is, what specifically are the tools, and how will they address the fact that only 16% of our 11th grade students are proficient in math, and only 22% in science, and this is based on the New Hampshire assessments? Is there an SAU school board focus on how the SAU and the school board will establish and drive specific measurable goals with deadlines, and that could be a year or two, whatever out, to evaluate improvement in these two areas? I could find nothing in the addendum, perhaps it is there, of any measurable goals with proficiency level targets and achievement dates that address those low scores. These scores represent a 20% drop in 11th grade proficiency in reading, and from 56 to 36% from school year 16-17, 17-18. Now, obviously 18-19 may have some different numbers. Another question, is there an SAU school board plan to pursue the retention of our trained teachers and staff to provide continuity year to year? We certainly cannot afford to be training teachers for other school districts. Of course, as we all know, the state finally did step up this year and provide some much needed funding for our schools, and certainly needed and well deserved, and should have been there all along anyway. And for Franklin, this was over $800,000 this school year, slightly less in 2020, and a little over $900K in 2021. And I do believe one of those is sustaining. Is that, Tim, right? Where they brought you back up from 2016. One of them is a continuing one, unless
Yeah, the stabilization grant was the
correct.
piece that was had been reducing by 4% each year since 2000.
Right. That's
permanently.
That is permanently stopped. That's what I thought. And the council did vote unanimously to give the full amount to the school for their disbursement. And I had asked Dan a little bit about this at the last city council meeting. And again, just some questions, you can read over them. Will they be used to cover unanticipated sped costs? Will they be used to retrain or retain our teachers? Will additional counselors be hired for the early grades to try to catch the students early who may fall through the cracks before moving on to higher grades? Are there any new courses that are going to be brought back into the curriculum? And if so, can they be sustained? And Dan and I talked a little bit about this at the city council meeting, and I know you're making some efforts to do some sustaining work. And are there any other spending priorities? Clearly, the timing of the money from the state to the school is fortuitous, as for any of you who have been attending, as the city councilors have meetings on the fire, MSD, and the police department. Our city departments are now facing the impact of shifting money to the schools over the last 3 years. In that time frame, over $1.3 million was voted by the city council to go to the schools. And now our other departments are in need of those upgrades, salary increases, and step promotions, hired, exactly the same kind of reasons that you give your teachers raises. We're in the same situation with our city employees who have not had the benefit of having an annual step increase. I also would recommend too, and I am on the finance committee this year, I'm not the chair, Paul Trudell is the chair, that the school budget plan on a tax cap budget, just as the other departments are likely going to do. Unfortunately, with your 7-2 vote not to work with us to find ways to consolidate like functions, it gets a little hard to work on that issue. But we now are at a point in the city that we must recognize both the qualities and performances of our city employees, as you have with your teachers, and I encourage the school to carefully allocate your funds, as I'm sure you are doing, to sustain these budgets over the next 3 years and beyond, as our municipal requirements now cannot wait. Thank you. And I have copies for all of you. Are there any questions?
Maybe later.
can send more to the rest of you if you like. Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else that would like to address the board tonight? Okay, seeing none, I will close that portion of our meeting, which brings us to agenda item 6, which is recognitions. Do we have any recognitions for tonight? First, I'd like to recognize Zoe. Zoe, I just want to let you know, such as you did at the city council, which, as you know, I came and spoke to you after the city council, and you came up and spoke with me for a little while, which I very much appreciate the kind words that you said to me that night. I want to recognize you tonight for the outstanding job, not only that you did at the city council, but you did here before our school board and before the public, and for what you represent as a Franklin Middle School student to come here and do what you did. So on behalf of myself and this board, thank you very much for coming here and doing a wonderful rendition of the national anthem. Do we have any other recognitions? Because we do have a couple of moment of silences that we'd like to do also for tonight. I'll talk about the first one, which we lost someone who was very much a big part of this community, and that was Captain Sam Davis from the Franklin Fire Department. Sam was a personal friend, so if I get a little choked up, apologize. I was at his funeral today. He gave 52 years to the city of Franklin, and unexpectedly passed away a little more than a week ago. But he was always one that supported our schools, very much was active. His kids were active within the schools, and he'll be sorely missed by both the city and personally myself. Being the superintendent of the Franklin cemeteries, he was very close with us up there at the cemetery too, helping us out. So that's one of the moment of silence I'd like to give for tonight would be Sam Davis. And I know Dan has one he'd like to talk about.
I don't know if everyone's heard, but we lost a veteran teacher, Leanne Miller, 49-year veteran of Franklin Schools, passed away on December 30th, one day before she was retiring. It's very tragic and difficult for the school district. So if we can remember her as well, that'd be great.
Have a couple moment of silence for the two, please. Thank you. Any other recognitions that would want to be brought before the board tonight? Seeing none, I will close that portion of our meeting for this evening. Which brings us up to agenda item 7. This is a continuation. We brought this forward last month, but unfortunately Attorney Sufa was not able to make it with us, so he is with us tonight. Attorney Sufa reached out to me back in October, November, somewhere in there. Wanted to just give an update. As you all know, Attorney Sufa came in with the people with him tonight to talk about the lead action and the committee report. So we would like to update us tonight. So welcome, Attorney Sufa.
Thank you. Some this way, some that way.
Excuse me.
So who you want to present? I brought my people here today.
So I met many of you last summer. My name is Carrie Portry. I work for a group called New Hampshire Listens out of the Carsey School of Public Policy at UNH. And I've helped gather groups across 7 municipalities in New Hampshire. So Franklin is one, Concord, Somersworth, Rochester, Manchester, Nashua, and Claremont. I think that's 7. And so Franklin is one of those groups, and they're going to share kind of the work they've done gathering people. Some of the people that have met over the last probably 10 months or so have been the folks from Partnership for Public Health. Shelley's here, and she'll talk a little bit about what they have, some funds they have available to support work here. Chris Sufer, of course, as you all know. And then Mike Foss, who is the Fire Chief and Health and Officer. Sorry. And also a person named Jim Wells, who is who's involved in the Health First community. And so Shelley's going to talk. So what we do is we gathered a few times, a bunch of conversations, gathered multiple perspectives from the community. We met with some of the city councilors. And so based on kind of all that feedback, the Partnership for Public Health has kind of applied for some funds and has some suggestions for how to help everyone move forward. The new lead laws are moving forward. They were just re-presented in front of the legislation again on last Wednesday. And so there are higher requirements for kids in terms of getting tested and what's acceptable and unacceptable for the lead levels, which you may be able to talk a little bit more about. So anyway, that's all I'll say.
All right. My name is Shelley Carita, and I'm the Executive Director of the Partnership for Public Health. And the partnership is one of 13 regional public health networks in the state. And last summer, the state of New Hampshire reached out to us because there's a significant lead problem in Franklin, and we were noted as one of the biggest areas. Other than, I think, Manchester and Franklin, and there was maybe another city or town that was noted. And so they gave us a little bit of money so that we could get things going and try to develop a coalition, get all the right people in the room. And so we did that over the course of the summer and part of the fall. And then they asked us to submit a full proposal, which we did do in probably about 3 months ago. And we were funded for to do this coalition building in the community of Franklin over the next, I believe, like 17 or 18 months. So anyway, what we want to do here at Franklin, and we want to certainly build a collaborative group. We've got five or six people that are the real heavy hitters here in Franklin that want to get on board, but we do need more help. And we think that folks from the school board, those types, would be able to help us get to the people that we need, which would be more the parents, to get to the kids and to get to the kids early. So we want to provide a lot of outreach and education. It's funny, a lot of people just don't know. The lead problem was really big several years ago, and then nobody was talking about it. So they've kind of forgotten about the problems with lead and how dangerous it can be to our kids, so and to adults for that matter. So we are looking for places where we can go to have these educational sessions and to get the word out there that there's what people and what parents should be doing and so forth. We are going to be looking at like the codes and the policies, particularly around, and maybe Attorney Silford, you could probably speak to that, the policies and standards around, let's say, things like doing reconstruction projects and doing kind of demolition, and what kinds of safeguards you really should be putting in place. Because some people just don't know. Some people just start, remodeling their home and really don't pay any attention to what the contents of that paint might be, so those are some of the things that we're going to be working with. And also, the state would like us to, meet with them periodically to report our progress on what we're achieving here in Franklin. So we really need to get more and more people involved. Our overall goal really is to increase the number of children receiving lead blood level testing prior to public school entry. So, and we want to also focus on prenatal blood work, including lead screening and testing for children 2 and under. So that's our target. And we want to develop a better understanding of policies that can include the preventative measures regarding lead safety in order to begin increasing advocacy efforts in multiple sectors. So we need, we need your help. We need more folks involved in this so that we can have a successful outcome over the next 18 months. So we would love your help anyway.
So the ask is, we'd like to have a school board member that can participate in our quarterly meetings. And I think it would be helpful to have somebody, one of the school nurses, to join us at these quarterly meetings so she can give information and take information back. So that's kind of the ask. I know that we were here a while ago and 2 of you volunteered to be on our committee and neither one of you showed up, so I'm not gonna point out any names. But if we could have one committed volunteer and then somehow get one of the school nurses to help us, that would be fantastic. So that's the ask.
Known you for 30 years, I'll volunteer.
Your meetings have been during the daytime.
Yeah, the chief.
That's been an issue.
Yeah.
So I just, not that they did it, I understand where you're coming from, but I know they reached out to me and the issue was the fact that they were during the day, maybe some scheduling conflicts there.
We could probably work around those schedules going forward so that we can have better participation. That'd be fine, Tim.
Okay. So is there anybody from this board who would like to participate?
So I already made, and Delaney?
So I could volunteer and I could do it during daytime hours as well. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Delaney and Paul will represent this board.
Okay.
Chris. The superintendent will reach out to the nurses at the schools if we have someone available.
It'd just be helpful to have that perspective.
You could just shoot me an email, Chris.
I will.
It says when the next meeting is, and I'll make sure to follow.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we all set? All right, good evening.
Thank you for your time.
Volunteer. That only meets 4 times a year, right? Yeah, so that's what. That looks like a zero. Look middle.
So just so we know, what I'll do is on the committee thing, I'm just gonna put down lead action committee representatives. I'm not gonna put this as a formal committee, but I'm just gonna put it on our committee so people know, so when we send the committee reports up to the city, as we always do, it'll be down there showing that, Paul and Delaney will represent the school board, okay? All right, next item is our portrait of a graduate update. I'll let the superintendent kind of touch base with everybody on this a little bit before we introduce.
So as you know, we did receive the Portrait of a Graduate grant for $135,000 over the next year. Jules spearheaded that. And we are privileged tonight to have Carissa Caro here. Carissa, welcome. And she's here, she's our consultant that's working with us on the grant, and she will hopefully be able to give us some information and answer maybe some questions that you have regarding the grant.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being here today.
Sure, thanks. So my name is Carissa Coro, and I work for the Center for Collaborative Education, and we're a Boston-based nonprofit, and our vision is for a just and equitable world, and our mission is really to help schools and districts rethink their systems, and in particular in my work, I help schools and districts rethink their assessment systems. And so in New Hampshire, I work with teachers in performance assessments. So some of you, I think you've probably, most of you have heard about the New Hampshire PACE project. And so I train about 200 New Hampshire teachers a year in performance assessment, and I work with schools and districts across the country. Yesterday, can I just have you pass this down? Thank you, appreciate that. Yesterday, actually I was in Minnesota. I think it might be 2 degrees warmer here than it was there. And so this is just a quick update about Portrait of the Graduate, and an opportunity for me to introduce myself. I work in Boston, but actually I live in Pennacook. And I started my teaching career in Franklin at the high school in the School to Work program. I worked with Pat Prescott in 2002, 2004, and we actually started that Campus Creations off-campus store, which is a pretty
a significant opportunity for me and really is a grounding for my philosophy of education and the work that I do. So I'm grateful for Franklin for that opportunity. And my grandmother's actually a Franklin High School graduate. She graduated in 1942.
What's her name?
Her name was Cecile Menard. There's definitely a connection here for me. So the Portrait of the Graduate work will start right now, and on that sheet of paper I've got sort of a process there. So right now we're in a launch phase, and that's really just talking to folks, getting the word out. So you're the first group we're talking to. We're going to start with you, and actually we're going to end with you as well. So we're going to meet with some community groups, starting with you, meet through February. We're going to talk to all the students in a few weeks. We're going to organize a student work group to really drive this work. That's the goal. We met with the Bar Foundation a couple of weeks ago. I know that Susan was there, and Jewel came, and Molly Horn, who's also one of the core facilitators. So we went down to Boston to work with them, and they really thought hard about how to drive this work, and the student perspective is super important. So we're going to target students to help us with this working group and really think about how their voice can lead this vision of the graduate work. And so from there, we'll get another work group member, our work team growing. Now, I heard y'all ask for a volunteer for school board, so we're going to need one more school board member for sure to be on this working group. But other members of the working group will include community leaders, higher education, some parents. So there'll be 14 members of that working group, and then the core facilitators, so me, Molly Horn, who's a teacher at the high school, and then Jewel. And those 17 of us will organize the learning, but everyone needs to be part of the process. So we're going to have some community dinners where we'll get some information from folks about what they hope a Franklin graduate will leave high school with in terms of perspective, skills, and knowledge. We'll do canvassing if necessary. We're going to do some focus groups and maybe some personal interviews. And so that'll all be part of the process. And then at the end of this year, in November, December, we'll come back to this group with a portrait of the graduate that really represents what the Franklin community, not just one group or another group, but the whole community vision or portrait of the graduate, what that looks like. And then we have some next steps beyond that, but that will get us through the grant year. I think, did I miss anything? I did. The second part of the process is really thinking about what's happening now. So I heard a little bit from, sorry, what was your name?
Joe Brown.
From Joe Brown about where kiddos are now. So really thinking about where they are now, why they are, and more than just test scores. So we'd like to interview alumni 4 and 5 years out. What did high school do for you? What didn't it do for you? To get some feedback there. Sometimes we have kiddos who maybe aren't successful in school, that are pushed out of school, and then go on to be successful. They hold down jobs, right? They're members of the community, and their experience in high school, even though maybe they didn't graduate, there were some experiences there that were super powerful for them to be able to live productive lives. I'm going to tell a quick story, if you'll just for relationship building here. I'm a child of poverty. My parents are teenage parents. My father dropped out of high school when he was 15. He was really, I would say, functionally literate, so he can do a little bit, but he really can't write a sentence or 2 sentences. He can read a little bit. When I was 6, he decided to get his GED, so we kind of learned to read together, or at the same time, we didn't really learn to read together. And when I was in high school, I had to do a senior project. And the senior project was a requirement that I demonstrate I could read effectively, write effectively, speak effectively, and that I could learn a new skill. It's important to know that my whole life I've always been smarter than my dad, and that's a narrative that he told me because I could read better than him, speak better than him, all these things. So I go into this senior project thinking, what am I gonna do? And I was in love with Fox Mulder from the X-Files. And so I decided to research the literary history of UFOs. So that took care of reading, writing, and speaking, but I needed to learn a new skill. And I didn't know what to do, but I figured, well, maybe I will ask my dad to help me build a UFO, because my dad is actually a pretty talented welder and fabricator. So we go to his shop, and he takes out a piece of paper, and the first thing I learned about making anything is that you have to build a prototype, because we don't want to waste money on precious materials like metal. And so he starts to draw shapes. He asks me to pick one, and then he writes a geometry formula on the piece of paper, and he starts to walk off, and he says, "Carissa, solve this, I'll be right back." And I couldn't solve it, because I had already passed geometry 2 years before, had memorized the formulas, and I just couldn't do it. And we had this back and forth. And if you can imagine my dad, he was like, "What do you mean? You know, I'm a high school dropout, and you are an honor society student, and you can't solve this problem." And two waves wash over me in that moment. And the first one is shame, because how dare I think I was smarter than my dad. And the second one was a little bit of anger, because how much time had I wasted in school memorizing for a test. So this project, this work, this vision of the graduate work is really helping the community define what success means. And so for my dad in school and for me in school, success was getting A's. Success was being compliant. Success was listening to teacher instructions. And all the other things in terms of skill and being able to do were lost on me. And also my dad, what defined success for him, those things were lost on him, so he didn't find success in learning until he was gone from school after he dropped out. So that's really the crux of this project, is helping the community decide what success means. It may be what an SAT score is, but it also might be more than that. And I really believe it is more than that. So, questions?
So the first question is, how much of the grant is dedicated to this process? Is that the reason for this grant?
Say that again.
How much money? So when you're offered this grant, what are the stipulations?
So it's $135,000, and we worked with Jewel to build the budget.
Right.
So that money pays for facilitation services. It pays for research services and graphic design services.
Okay.
That's from our office. So I'm a facilitator here in New Hampshire, but we've got a team there as well.
So are we expected to hire people to facilitate this?
No. There's also money built in for stipends for community working group members. There's money built in for food and events and supplies and materials. And there's also some money built in for providing some administrative support for folks like Jewel. So we don't want to take away, Jewel's going to be a facilitator, Molly's going to be a facilitator. If Molly's out of school, we're going to pay for subs for that. If Jewel needs some additional administrative support, we can pay for finding someone to help that. So there's money in there for that as well. I do this work in other schools too. Manchester West, if you've heard, they're doing a big redesign. So I was the project manager on their planning grant. Now we've switched to implementation now, and I work in Somerville, Massachusetts as well.
What is the end goal?
The end goal is for this community to start engaging in a process together around continuous improvement, and to have one common conversation about what is the vision of the graduate. Are we there yet? We're not there yet. What are we going to do to get there? And an iterative cycle of improvement. So we hope to redefine what success looks like in this community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my concern with the portrait of graduate, when we met last week, maybe everybody's portrait looks a little different. So I really had a hard time wrapping my head around the title of this program.
Yeah.
For somebody who is on a college track or somebody who is entering the trades, how are we going to mesh those two things together? How do we come? I mean, I see like two different ends of the spectrum. How do we?
So we take everyone's opinion in, and we think about where we are in agreement. And you're right, there may be some places where we can't we don't want to box anyone in, right? But a portrait of the graduate might be every Franklin graduate can be successful in a way that's meaningful for them, right? So that is pretty open. And so then we'd have, how do we measure that? We look 5 years out and say, did we do that? It takes a little bit, right, to measure that. It might be that we want students to be critical thinkers. What does that mean? What does critical thinking really mean to this Franklin community? And how do we understand that? And how are we going to hold ourselves accountable and our students accountable and our teachers accountable to that? So we do a lot of work in that working group. That 17-member working group will help to do that, but we can take all the information in and create a vision. And this group, this body here, I don't know, but you all, this body here will be responsible for taking that in and hopefully adopting that. I know there's a lot of different work. NEASC did some work. The City Council, the 21st Century, there's some thinking there. So this is really about bringing all of those processes together. And bringing folks to the table who don't normally come to the table. So like an example, someone like my dad, he would never come to the school to give his opinion, even though he has one about how school works. But we're gonna go out and find and have conversations with those folks.
Any other questions? Chris, if you have the availability, I know you have a lot of questions, a lot of insight to this. I would like you to be represented for the board, if you have the availability and time to do it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough commitment for me right now.
Okay.
What are we looking at for, at a facilitator level? As a core facilitator?
So the core facilitators have already been defined, so that's
Okay.
me, Jewel, and Molly. So we'll be driving the work. The working group is gonna start working in April, and it's one meeting a month. And then beyond that, what the commitment is. So pretty much, we hope that our student working group will be the drivers of this, bring that information to that larger group to make decisions, thinking about what next steps are. So 2 or 3 hours a month.
I can do it, if Chris, here, I can do it.
Yeah, let me consider.
Are your meetings gonna be during the day? Because that's kind of I mean, some of us it's easier for, but I mean, that's gonna kind of be the commitment, is that a lot of our board members work during the day.
Yeah, and so this work is about meeting folks where they are. So we will have meetings on times and days that make the most sense for the working team, for the working group.
All right.
And they might be rotating.
Well, I'm self-employed, so that doesn't matter.
We know.
Yeah, I'm living the life here.
So what I'd like to do is put Chris down, if Chris is able to do it, is put Chris down as a board member with Susan, and Paul as an alternative, in case Paul, they can both attend it, and they can both kind of fill each other in on what's going on, because I know you need the commitment from the board. And, I know Susan wants to do it, she went down to Boston and everything.
Oh, you
so-
already have Susan?
Yes,
Oh, well then, you have you too.
yeah, Susan's already on it.
Oh, okay, so you have you too, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we want all of you to be involved. So there's a pledge card there. This is a sample pledge card, so we're printing these out. So if you see these around town, and when we present to folks, we're going to present this and ask folks not if you'll be involved, but how you'll be involved.
Okay.
So it could be simple as doing a survey.
All right, it's perfect. Is
All
there any
right.
other questions for Carissa?
Question.
Yeah.
On all the data that you presented, where did you gather your data? All the schools that were listed out, Lowell, Franklin, wherever, where did you get that data?
I'm not sure what data you're talking about. So each school had to submit their own. So we applied with Franklin, so Lowell would have submitted their data.
Got it.
Lawrence would have submitted theirs, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. We're a pretty interesting group.
I was impressed by the data, especially Lowell and Lawrence, that was, where they had such a high proportion going to college education, post-secondary.
Yeah, every school has their own different.
Whereas Franklin only had 19%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other questions for Carissa?
Do you have any more sheets?
Do I have any more sheets?
You can make copies.
Awesome.
Do you need?
I have students where I work, former students.
Oh,
so-
okay.
Pledge cards?
Oh, yeah, we have pledge cards that will be out. They're better than this. They're cardstock. And then I have for these folks too. Thanks so much for indulging me in that story. I know that was a little long, but it's super helpful for relationship building, so you know I'm with you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll have Susan and Chris doing it whenever I can. If you can't be there, I'm gonna obviously attend these meetings myself, so.
Take my name off the list.
Yeah, you're gone, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Since this is an I-2, Chris will be reporting each month on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I too. Okay. We're gonna bring it now to the agenda item 9, which is our high school student representative report. We have representative tonight, representation tonight, so welcome back. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So first thing, we picked the theme for Winter Carnival. If anyone doesn't know, it's TV and movies. So we've picked the themes for each grade, and we're starting to plan for the Winter Carnival itself. This December, we had a canned food drive for the Elks Lodge. We collected over 200 cans, so we're very happy about that. And the last thing, we were hoping to be able to plan a fundraising activity for the community day. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for our student representative? All right, thank you. All right, this brings us to agenda item 10. We need approval of our board meeting minutes from December 9th and December 16th. And just so it's noted now, so they don't have to, but Paul and Cecile, being new members, will be abstaining from it, so they won't.
No, I
have to
attended the
worry.
last 3 meetings, so I'm not abstaining.
Oh, you're not? Okay, jeez, Paul.
So have I.
You
but
been there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got a few corrections.
All right, so we need approval of the meeting minutes.
I move to accept the December 9th, 2001.
Whoa, wait.
Wait, I got some changes.
Well, he can make
We'll-
the motion.
we'll-
He can
Oh,
make
yes,
the
we'll
motion
make
to
the motion
amend.
first. I keep forgetting
Yeah.
that.
We'll amend.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Cecile, make the motion for us.
No, go ahead, Paul.
Who's making it?
Chris,
Chris, thank you.
As presented, December 9th, as presented.
The,
Hold on. So the minutes, the motion made
I'll second.
to approve the December 9th minutes, and by Chris, it's been seconded by Cecile. Okay, now it's open for discussion or corrections.
yeah, I read from a prepared statement. You see all those errors? That's what it looks like when I don't have an editor and writer and ghostwriter on staff. I'm looking for one if anybody's available. I read aloud from the letter. I gave everyone a letter, and all I had to do was look at the letter to see what I presented. I did not mention Second Amendment, potential escalation of assault charges. Those were copy-paste from the October meeting when I did speak as a public member. Thank you.
Okay. We're doing
Kathy?
December 9th?
Okay. Yeah, we're still on December 9th,
Okay.
Cecile.
Appalled, first page. David Tessman stated that he was appalled. I think that's misspelled, if I remember. I checked it. It's A-P-P-A-L-L-E-D.
What page? I'm sorry.
Page 2. Sorry. It's 1, 2, 3, 4th line down. And also on the first page, second line from the bottom, regarding is misspelled also. And then on the third page, I guess, so this was the public, so there were no answers given, is that correct? This was the
Correct.
public hearing, so there was no answers to the
No.
questions?
No.
Okay, so I guess I'm a little confused with, the paragraph starting with Larry Hennessy. I guess, at the end, he states, keep it simple,
this is- yeah.
buildings of schools, should they be a comma, I guess, that's in there someplace, or is it, keep it simple, comma, buildings of schools are for education, not sexuality? I'm just a little,
Buildings and schools.
buildings and schools it should be?
I believe.
Oh, not of. Oh, okay, that's why I couldn't make any sense out of it. Okay, thank you. That's it, thank you.
Any other corrections?
Yes, I was
Yep.
not here at that meeting, so I am an absent member, not a attendee. My first missed meeting in 3 years.
Is there anything else?
No.
Kathy, you have all those corrections?
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor to approve the December 9th, 2019 meeting minutes with corrections, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Will abstain. Motion passes. I now need a motion to accept the December 16th, 2019 meetings.
I'll move to accept the December 16th, 2019 meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made to accept the board meeting minutes for December 16th, 2019 by Chris, seconded by Jeff. Are there any corrections to be made?
I have
Okay,
Go
go ahead,
ahead.
Deb.
under committee reports, renovations at all 3 schools, not 4. Unless we have 4 schools that they're hiding one. Page 3, the second paragraph, I think it's supposed to read, Mayor are aware that the school is spending and having to use, and not is. And then further down, let's see, in the where Tim Dow starts, third from the bottom, should will be were, W-E-R-E, begins the sentence, third one up from the bottom. Areas will all checked for monitoring.
Work.
That's what I think it should be work. And on page 4, under the discussion was held regarding NHSBA resolutions, just before the motion, it should state at the end of that, it was the consensus of the board to support the recommendations of NHSBA, because there's nothing determining what my direction is, but I know it was stated that way. And, the last motion on that page, Scott, moved to accept the change. It really isn't an update, because it was changing. Same page 4.
Okay. And that was where again, I'm sorry?
The last motion on that page,
Okay.
just the update should be change. That's it.
Do we have any other further changes?
On page 6. Let's see, it's at the bottom of the page, where it starts with Peter Schmidt. I'm a little confused. What is the referrals? 123 referrals, that means what? That's
Peter, explain
120
what the referrals are for.
Sure, that's discipline referrals. So anytime a student gets in trouble, the teacher will write them up in Alma, and that will be a referral. a discipline
Okay,
referral.
so the action taken, should all these numbers actually total 123?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
no, because there's a number of teacher detentions that are given in there.
Okay.
Some are just conferences with students, et cetera.
Okay. That's it?
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Cecile. All right, so all in favor of approving the December 16th meeting minutes with the corrections, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Kathy, you're all set with all them? Okay. All right, agenda item 11, old business. So we'll start out with our report from Business Administrator with Jefferson.
Thank you. So I've uploaded all the financial reports to the shared drive for everybody to view. Since the last board meeting, we have spent and encumbered an additional $137,639. We have been reasonably successful filling positions that we had allotted with the new state funding that we received. Principal Blair has actually been able to fill the kindergarten teaching position. We were also able to fill the custodial position that we had opened up for Paul Smith. Principal Darsney has also actually just able to get a science teacher now at the middle school. So considering being in the middle of the year, we've been very fortunate to actually accomplish that. We've also recognized an additional $78,741 in revenue. The administrators have been working diligently at entering their budgets for the next year, and we are scheduling meetings to discuss those with them first week of February. I have received the draft audit report from our auditor for last year. I'm going to work on getting some language completed on that, but I will have that ready for your review at the next board meeting. And that's the extent of my information tonight.
Are there any questions for Jefferson? Did anybody have the opportunity to review Jefferson's reports that he had sent to the board prior to this meeting? Are there any questions for Jefferson? Seeing no questions, do we all accept the financial report and expenditure report so they can be publicly onto our website? Everybody good with that? All right, Jefferson, you may post them on our website. All right, moving on to committee reports. Do we have committee reports? We'll start with Delaney.
We got a strategic planning and communications committee meeting on a snowy January 8th. We reviewed core value 2, and we'll be voting later on this evening on moving completed goals into the ongoing category. We discussed and decided to move to having full school board committee meeting reviews each quarter, and the first should be in April. We'll be discussing that again later on tonight. And the main goal of that was, at these reviews, we've been having a lot of really good discussion on all the topics that we're covering in our strategic plan, and would like to bring that into a more public, more highly visible forum, and just spread the information around that we've been diving into. On a positive note, it looks like we will likely complete all of the goals in the plan in a 3-year time frame rather than the projected 5-year time frame. So at our meeting in April, we will be soliciting input to expand the goals and add measurables to the plan to try to extend back out to a 5-year time frame. And all of those will be discussed at the annual June working group meeting. And that's most of what we had on the strategic plan. On the communications end, do we have plans for Ken to present the live streaming process to the city council?
Still working this
Still working on that?
Yeah, it'll be coming up.
And for our meeting notifications, did we have the live stream URL included in our meeting posting as we had discussed?
I'm not sure if we got to that point yet. Ken, quick question.
Sir.
Do you know if we have the live stream URL in the meeting posting that Kathy posts? Have we got that far yet?
I don't know that it's in the postings, but it's on the website at link, and it also, it's been, a notice has been sent out to all the families in the district.
Because we
So
zapped it
that's the
home to
next-
everybody, right?
Yes.
So then that's the next step, is to include it with your agenda posting, Kat, so we'll do that from now on next month. Okay.
Thank you. And one other thing we discussed was having a full meeting between the school board and the city council to kickstart our communication process and better engage in working together. And Tim will be discussing that again later on this evening.
Thank you, Delaney. Any questions for Delaney on communications or strategic? All right, we're gonna move on to Chris. Chris had some meetings with us?
So the I2 committee met January 13th. We met with Carrie Charette and Molly Horn. They gave us an update of the Portrait of Graduate seminar they attended in Boston. Very similar to what we all just saw with this presentation. We took a look at the test scores that are now available on the New Hampshire Department of Education information portal. We can now compare ourselves to other school districts. We're looking at the test scores. We discussed what makes up a test score, which leads us into our our school board assessment training that we're going to have February 13th. We're going to dive a little deeper into what the test scores mean. We also talked about ways to address these test scores going forward. It'll be a good opportunity, as Joe Brown had mentioned, to kind of adopt this into our strategic plan. Now that we have this information and the school board is going to go through this training, we'll be a little more proactive in addressing these concerns, especially in light of our upcoming budget season, and addressing the needs of the schools to address these concerns. We are meeting again on February 11th, and then the training is going to be on, the school board training is going to be on February 13th.
What time on the 13th?
6 o'clock.
Here?
You have to be right here.
Yes, it'll be here. And it's on the superintendent's report, so he'll be discussing that here shortly. So I won't get into all the details because I'll leave that to Dan, but there's some more stuff that he'll talk about on the assessment meeting.
Oh, sorry, and Dan will address that further on.
Way to go, Chris.
Yes, he will.
All right, Scott, you're all set. Jeff, you're all set. Okay. I attended the Hewitt. I had a regional advisory board meeting at Hewitt a couple of weeks ago. The superintendent and I both attended it. He attended one earlier dealing with, for superintendents, and then I went with both the regional and superintendents there. The thing is, what this was for is that they want to bring Newfound on, okay? State law allows students to go anywhere in the state to technical training, okay, and facilities. Currently, Newfound sends some students to Hewitt, some students go to Plymouth, okay? Newfound is starting to see more offerings at the Hewitt Center, so the Regional Advisory Board has accepted a 3-year pilot program to bring Newfound students over to Hewitt. It will not, okay, that was one of the first things both the superintendent and I asked about, is it going to affect our students? And it will not, okay? The seats that are available to our students will be given to our students first. Any open seats will then go through a second round with the 8 school districts that go, and if there's, those students will say, and then Newfound will, if whatever's left over, will get the additional seating, okay? This is a 3-year pilot program. This has all been drawn out. I received a letter today from the Hewitt Center outlining everything. This has all been discussed and outlined through DOE. So once this 3-year pilot is up, and if the Regional Advisory Board wants to continue having Newfound as part of our team, then it would be up to each school board would then approve that. Okay, right now we don't have to, because students can go wherever they want in the state. So it will not have any negative effects on our school. They currently offer 16 programs over at Hewitt. Am I remember right? 16 is correct. I don't have the paperwork with me. I believe 16 was correct. Okay. And they're looking to add some more. One of the things that they are seeing is they do have a manufacturing program over at Hewitt. So, which is nice to know. I've spoken to them a little bit about it. Where we're adding in manufacturing, we're starting to have the meetings of manufacturing. I've attended a few of those manufacturing workshops that have come into the high school. I've been there when they've been coming in and speaking to our juniors and seniors, and now, you know, Hewitt's going to be is offering to us some manufacturing, so that's going to be part of the schooling. And Hewitt is coming into the school on the 28th, be out here. 28th at 10:30, so I'll be there attending that meeting also. That will be a meeting where they will be meeting with our sophomores and juniors. Sophomores, excuse me, that will be going to the juniors that may have an interest in attending the Hewitt Center. Okay, so we are trying to get a little bit more of the push for the Hewitt Center. They do have a lot of programs offered over there, from HVAC to plumbing to construction to manufacturing to nursing, education, law enforcement, firefighting. I mean, these are all programs that are offered through the Hewitt to our students, okay? We currently have, and Carrie usually helps me, I think we have 15 students that go over to Hewitt now. Is that about right, Peter?
Yeah.
About 15 students that come over. So our seats are being taken, okay? So they are fulfilling those seats, but this is just a pilot program. Newfound came to the Hewitt Center, talked to them. The regional advisory board said, yeah, we would let them come in, as long as it didn't affect the students that had already committed through the regional agreement that, as we all know, I signed a year ago, as long as it wasn't going to affect that. So, and it does not affect it. It will not affect any of our students in any manner. So that's where it stands on Hewitt for now. So I'll keep, as things progress, I'll keep you up to date. Like I said, we have a meeting. Hewitt's coming in to speak to our students next Tuesday, so I'll be there for that. We'll keep it up to date as we go along. So is there any questions dealing on Hewitt that anybody has for questions?
I
How
just
many
have a
slots
question.
do we have?
Oops, go ahead.
I know you said we got 15
Yeah.
using, but what's our max number? I can't remember what was in the contract.
It's about 20.
Yeah, we've never hit it since I've been.
Yeah, that's the thing. In the over a course of the last 5 years, the seats aren't filling up. You know, enrollment is up, but the class sizes are down. So there's always been openings. Hewitt is showing an increase in enrollment and everything, but the class sizes seem to be going down for whatever reason. Okay, so but there are other courses like your HVAC course, your construction courses, computer design courses. Those are all seeing increases. There's waiting lists for them on that because, you know, those are more ones that seem to be more of a popular one. So the advisor over there is not showing any problem with any of these kids. Because like I said, there's about 6 kids down that are coming from Hewitt. I mean from Newfound, excuse me, and they're figuring probably another 15 to add on to that. Cecile?
That was my question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Any other questions? All right, that's the only report I have. Ms. Hewitt, and I'll take it over to Deb. I know she's got a few.
Yep. Finance met on January 16th, and we reviewed all the expenditure reports and reconciliations, and got an update on personnel on buildings and grounds. We reviewed activities accounts, talked about the budget process, and our next meeting is, forgot to write it down.
I have it on the phone if you need.
I think it was February 19th?
That sounds right.
February 19th, sorry about that.
Yep.
At what time?
4:30.
4:30. We also have negotiations that concluded. The board will be reviewing the contracts for support staff and custodians tonight in non-public, and then we will take a vote after to accept them or not. And so, teachers will come to you next month, hopefully, if everything goes well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Deb. Is there any questions dealing with finance and negotiation? All right, thank you very much. All right, that'll conclude committee reports. Now we got legislative report. Representative Horn is with us tonight. I know they've been busy down in Concord. I'm getting my notices on a daily basis.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Werner Horn, representative for Merrimack County 2nd District, the 1st and 2nd voting wards for Franklin and the community of Hill. As Chairman Dow has alluded to, we are in full swing. Public hearings every day of the week, except for Mondays and Fridays. And then the House sessions will start as soon as we've execed enough bills to justify the massive expense of paying us to show up. On a specific note, I was in attendance when they impaneled the commission, the $500,000 commission to study education funding in New Hampshire, come up with a solution. I was not encouraged. To be blunt, at least one of the representatives on that commission submitted legislation that was disingenuous. So he's not above manipulating the system. Senator Khan was nominated to the commission, and Senator Khan's partisan votes don't indicate he's a big fan of education in New Hampshire, especially from the fiscal committee where they refused $46 million in federal money. I'm not a big fan. Several people on the commission talked about how great it was to be back on a commission because they've been on this education commission before. My thought is, you didn't do it last time because we have to have one this time. How are we going to have a better outcome if we have the same people involved? And when nobody challenged David Luno for the chairmanship, that was another red flag for me. Really? You're the best person to be chairman in that committee? It's a commission. They're bringing experts in to sit on that and be impaneled, and he's the best person. So, I'm not hopeful. I did testify to all of the things that I just related, except for Representative Luno, because they're big concerns for me. This commission cannot descend into partisan bickering. It cannot be parceling out money to people's friends to show up and talk about how we have an education funding problem in New Hampshire. We already know that. We had an entire subcommittee that met for pennies on the dollar compared to the price tag of $500,000 the previous summer. They came up with an education adequacy formula change that was ultimately ignored. We don't need to spend $500,000 on this commission, and I told them that straight up. I'm going to keep going there, and as I implored the commission members, you need to keep an eye on each other. You need to keep each other accountable, because the disingenuousness or the partisanship has no place on this subject. This is too important for the students of New Hampshire to have people playing favorites, playing games with this money. The House calendar will have all of the public hearings, including all of the notices for the commission. The next commission meeting is a week from yesterday. I plan on being there for that. I just can't trust them to not screw this up. I'm going to be there in the room, so I know what's going on firsthand. But anybody interested in following along, the public hearings are all noticed. The public hearings on the bills are by committee. If anybody has questions, comments, concerns about getting to a meeting, I'd be happy to concierge you through the process, which room you need to be at, what the process is for blue sheets versus pink cards, and all of the rest of that. I view that as kind of my job. I'm trying to help facilitate people get into these public hearings because you have information that we don't have. And it's important that people show up and testify on issues that they have really strong feelings about. That being said, happy to answer comments, questions, concerns.
Do they record those meetings?
They do. The commission will be recorded and live streamed if they follow the precedent set by the impaneling, because the impaneling was live streamed.
Warner, what's their deadline to report? Do they have a deadline?
They do have a deadline. Typically on a commission like this, you're looking at November for a time frame, but I would encourage you to not take my word for it and look at the legislation that set up the commission. It'll be contained in that legislation what the report date is, but typically it's November.
I believe, though, I received notification when we were on that for the commission on this, that they extended it out because the budget was signed so late. The budget was signed not until October, so they have extended that out, was the notification I got, until January of 2021. So, just to let you know.
So they can't
I got that message.
I mean, there's no silver bullet.
Right.
The education challenges facing New Hampshire are different now than they were 25 years ago, and they'll be different in 25 years. So to say that we have the solution on education funding is so arrogant, it makes my brain melt.
Yeah, that's what they're looking at again, I think.
I thought I heard, that's why I was asking, because I had heard the same thing.
Okay.
Extra 3 months of meetings that I may not even be a representative for at that point.
Are there any other questions for Warner? Legislative questions that you may have? Thank you, Warner. I was
Thank you.
gonna try to attend it that day, but unfortunately I have my granddaughter that day because there's no school in Concord.
Bring her along. Would be
I
happy
want
to
my
have
5-year-old
her.
granddaughter there.
And believe me, we need
She
to
will
hear
be
from the
running
younger
through the
generation.
hallways.
They're talking about funding for her entire school career.
Kindergarten, right there.
That would wake them up, probably.
Oh, all right, thank you, Warner.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, we're gonna bring it along now to agenda item 12, which is new business update from our superintendent. So we'll start out with Superintendent Legala going over his update for this evening.
So, we're getting to the point where we're almost ready to go paperless, or as paperless as we can get. You might have noticed that this was a huge packet this month. Huge packet. So if there was ever a month that would push us over the edge, it was this month.
Oh, it did.
It pushed Tim over the edge.
It did.
So everybody except for Cecile at this point has their Chromebooks. I'm still trying to get yours.
No, I got it.
Oh, you did get
Yeah,
it?
I
Oh, it
haven't-
came in, oh,
yeah.
great, okay.
Yeah.
All right, super, that's great. So, you know, I think that we should do the best we can to make the commitment to move forward as much as we can. Does anybody have a burning desire to have the paper? Because if we do, we can still do that.
I would just like the cover sheet that lists the agenda items so that I can scroll through and be able to check off as I go. So just the top 2
Or just
sheets.
the agenda?
Just
Yeah,
the
just
agenda.
The actual agenda.
They're great.
Does that sound good to people?
And if it's possible to have the documents match that agenda. Just so we can, in that order. How much time?
We try to do that.
Okay.
We do try to do that.
So are you just gonna send the agenda by email and we can print it ourselves, or?
I can print the agenda. I'll send it to you as an entire packet. I could send it individually too if you want, or I could just bring it.
Can we print from this?
Yes, you can.
You can, you got
Yeah.
accessibility at home and print from it, yes.
I downloaded everything to my tablet, so I have a hard copy, so I separate it out in tabs.
That's
Yeah.
too
But I think I would like to see a few things change different. I would like to see a live interactive index where there's an index page. Just hit, say we're going to the grant for the music award, where we can just hit music or whatever it is for an outline, and it'll jump right to that page. There's no reason why it can't be set up while the PDF files are running. The PDF files are still in archaic image format. They need to be in optical character recognition format. It won't be perfect, but at least you'll be able to type into a search portion and have it come right up the superintendent's report or Chairperson Dow has an item on the agenda. We'll be able to jump right to it. And I understand why the administrative have blocked the use of the UBS because of rubber ducky software. But I would like to see the UBS drive unblocked so I can have it into a flash drive and directly link to it. School server sometimes it tends to be a little slow.
So we'll take a look at all that, Paul.
I can understand why they don't want it. And as you can see, I taped over my camera. If I really wanted to be wise, I'd put super glue right over the microphone. I don't like them having access when I'm online. And I run off a Wi-Fi that's secure, but if this is on at the same time as I'm writing a report, I don't like the idea of having the IT department having access. If I don't get some of those, I will be asking for a paper copy.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
we'll look at it and see what we can do.
Thank you.
So we will move forward with that as much as we can in terms of going
I
paperless.
like paper, I'm sorry.
Right, next is, Jefferson had mentioned this, we were very fortunate, we have found a special education teacher that will now allow us to move a special education teacher at the middle school into the science position, which will finally get us full staffed by the end of the month. So, we were really almost at the point we were gonna give up on this, so I'm very happy that this is happening. So I'm gonna nominate Justin Avery as the middle school special education teacher, and I'm gonna nominate Doug Gooden as our new 7-8 science teacher.
It's Joshua.
Oh, did I say Justin?
Yeah.
Joshua, I'm sorry. It is Joshua. My glasses. Joshua.
So moved.
All right, so the motion's been moved by Scott. Do I have a second on it? Second by Chris to accept the nominations that have been presented by the superintendent. Do I have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, the nominations are accepted.
Thank you. All right, we have received a New Hampshire Charitable Fund grant in the amount of $5,200 for our music program in the district, so I just needed acceptance.
I have a question for us, please.
Sure.
Yeah, the terms of the award. Grants may be used to support attempts to influence.
Point of order, Paul, we have to accept it. That would be part of your discussion when it's accepted. So we have to make the motion to accept it, second it, and then that would be part of the open for discussion. That would be part of the discussion part of it.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'll move to accept the grant.
So motion's been made to accept the music grant as presented by the superintendent by Scott. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Cecile. Now it's open for discussion.
Hey, all right, why do they put under terms of the award? It's a grant for the music department, and it says grants may be used to support attempts to influence legislation of any government body.
Yeah, that's weird.
Why is that there? And also, they reference the wrong form. It's not 5168, it's form 5768. Do we need an amendment? Or I'd be happy with just hearing Superintendent Legato say it will not be used for lobbying purposes.
It definitely won't be used for lobbying
Thank you, Dan.
purposes.
We're on record.
That's for sure. That is for sure. I don't know why they do that, Paul.
Yeah.
It definitely
I
won't be
thought
used
that
for
was
that.
kind of weird too.
Yeah.
but-
I know why they do that. I just want to make sure we weren't doing it.
I know.
They have to, they have to. That's by law. I
Yeah.
have to put that in there.
Well, we need to change the law.
No.
Okay.
The grant, it's very general. It's just for, I mean, does that mean that for the music program, would you be able to buy instruments for the students as well?
Yeah.
Is that why you like it general? So you can really,
Well, you can then
Play with
target
it.
what your need is in that
Yeah.
way. So you talk with your music teachers, and find out
Okay.
what the need is, yeah.
Okay.
We didn't designate the generality of the donation, that's by the New Hampshire Charitable
Right,
Foundation.
yeah.
They can be very specific if they
Right.
wanted to, as to, it can only be used to purchase equipment, but
Right.
the conditions of that was not what they put onto it, and we
Right.
don't
so
determine that.
it gives you a
Yeah.
good leeway of what to do with it.
Right.
Okay, oh, curious.
Have the teachers, I'm assuming this is throughout all the schools, got a plan on what they are looking at purchasing or doing with
They
the
haven't
money?
established
We
that
haven't
yet.
got that far
They've
yet.
just been notified that
Yeah.
we did receive.
We
the
wanted
money.
your approval before we do that.
Could you
We'd be
bring that-
premature to do that until you approve it.
Could you
Didn't wanna get their hopes up.
Could you
Yeah,
bring a
right.
list to us or something at your next meeting of what the intent of use is?
We can. Just make note of that.
What would be the purpose of that? Of knowing what they're gonna
Just to know if they're purchasing, musical instruments, or if they're buying sheet music, or if they're
Just an
planning to take them
FYI
to.
type thing?
Yeah, just as an FYI, nothing more.
Oh, okay, all right.
All right.
All right, is there any other discussion?
Oh, you haven't accepted?
No,
Sorry.
we just had discussion.
We gotta-
Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor to accept this grant, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, the grant is accepted.
Thank you very much. All right, strategic plan update. As
Chairperson Dow?
Yes.
I wish to recuse myself from this discussion. And Kathy, please emphasize and note it that I am recusing myself from the strategic plan discussion. Thank you.
As Delaney had mentioned, we had quite the conversation at our last strategic plan meeting. And we believe that we should be meeting either quarterly or every 4 months. So it's either 3 or 4 times a year where the whole board meets to go over the strategic plan. 3 times a year, right? Every 4 months, I think is what we said. In your packet, you have 3 strategic plan reports. The one that's listed as the operational goals, those are the goals that you moved over the last time we talked about the strategic plan. The second report is addendum 2. That's your update, your 3-month update. The third report is your Excel spreadsheet checklist, which just tells you the status of each of the goals. So the one we're going to talk about tonight is addendum 2. And 2 things will happen after we get through the discussion. One will be is that'll be added to the district website as an update. And then I will be asking you to allow us to move those goals that have been completed or ongoing to the operational report. So we can move those and just keep the ones on there that are in the other 2 categories. So I can entertain questions on any of the 3 reports that you have. If you have any questions about the updates before we take action on the rest of it.
I'm not familiar with all the terminology. It says like the middle school students change classrooms in the family. What does that mean, in the family?
Ken, you want to answer that? The family structure you have? Academy structure?
In the last school year, we piloted a multi-age classroom configuration in order for us to individualize instruction for students based on a model where we don't look at the students as a grade, but as just as what their needs are and abilities, and therefore assess and instruct them not as a grade level, but just as where they are in the learning spectrum and where they need to go in order to complete our learning progressions. So that's essentially what the pilot was last year. We got some help from Plymouth State University to understand what's the best way for us to administer that. Over the course of the year, the entire school looked at all the configurations during which the way we could have our classrooms set up and all the different ways, right from self-contained classrooms to full-blown teams of teachers teaching like in a middle school setting the way they are in most conventional middle schools. Math, science, social studies, English language arts. And what we came up with it was a hybrid model that essentially says we've divided our school into 2 academies of grades 4 through 8. Each of the academies is further divided into 2 sections. The middle school sections are grades 4, 5, and 6, and the prep school sections are grades 7 and 8. Each of them have teams of teachers, and all of the teachers in those teams teach more than 1 grade level. So when they have their classroom instruction going on, they don't necessarily have the kids as 4th graders, 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, but just as groups of kids based on their abilities and needs, and they have them take ownership of the learning process through their learning.
It almost sounds like the old-fashioned one-room schoolhouse.
Well, interestingly enough, by dividing the school in half, each family, each group of kids has fewer teachers that they deal with. Once they've been assessed to that academy, they stay in the academy for the entire time that they're with the school. So that allows for what we call looping. So therefore, even this year, our current 5th graders, for the most part, have the same teachers that they had last year when they were in 4th grade, and many of our teachers are the same. The plans going forward is, from then, now that the academies are set up, the students will stay with that same group of teachers. They'll move up into the prep school as they become 7th and 8th graders. And the 3rd grade literally gives us a group of kids that are divided already, ready to go into next year's 4th grade. So the kids are evenly split between abilities, needs, special ed requirements, and all of that, behaviors.
And Cecile, to help to give you a little bit more
That's the long
insight,
version.
it's actually a follow-up or a continuation from our elementary.
Exactly.
Okay? Sue has a houses.
Yeah, I saw that
Structure at
too.
her school, okay?
So that's the same thing, the
So,
house, okay.
Sue can talk a little bit on that.
2
so-
years ago began the house model, and we broke our school, our wings up into 4 houses. We found that the 4 houses did not work because we only had 3 wings. So this year we are in 3 houses. The houses are designed to promote the history of Franklin. So the names of our houses carry a Franklin family name.
I think that's in your report,
Yeah,
isn't it?
or
Yeah, okay,
someone,
yeah.
or something, some business that really
Mhm.
contributed to the history of Franklin. Every wing or every house has at least one K, 1, 2, or 3.